The media keep talking about the divisions in the United States. I have yet to hear this argument that I'm about to make, but I think it's a pretty good argument that would explain quite a bit. Back in before the 1960s, okay, the Constitution was seen the way it was supposed to be seen, which is that there was an amendment process to allow for changes in the Constitution. Um, it allowed for a full airing of views. There needed to be a supermajority, which means 2/3 of the states and 2/3 of the citizens had to agree to give their rights, the administering of their rights, over to the federal government. There was a lot of arguments during the time of the founding fathers about what rights should be given to the federal government. The idea was to protect freedom as much as possible. In the 1960s, that changed. And right now, you can honestly say we are no longer being handled as by the consent of the government. The government pretty much just runs right over us. What they do is every 2 to 4 years there's an election, and a very important elections, each one of them. And it has become whoever gets the majority can pass laws, whether they think it's unconstitutional or not. They can pass as many laws as they want. All they need is to get the President of the United States to sign it into law, and then wait for the Supreme Court to address it, and hope that 5 of those 4 Supreme Court justices will find some sentence in the Constitution that already exists that would allow the federal government to just take those rights. And I think that is the reason why we have gotten so splintered in the electorate. It is so important now because we don't have a right through the amendment process to decide if we want to give a right away, or if we want to allow the federal government, if it makes sense for the federal government to administer this right. The federal government doesn't have to make that argument anymore. They don't have to go through the 2/3 majority and allow the discussion that would allow the citizens to feel like they've been heard, and they've had the right to make a decision whether or not the majority wanted to give the right away to the federal government. And today, all it takes is 5 judges, just 5 judges in the Supreme Court, to make a change to the Constitution by trying to put together some words and stretching them so far out of proportion that almost anything is covered under the Constitution. There no longer is a need to send out votes, an amendment out there and get approval, because all you need is 5 Supreme Court justices. That has taken away the feeling by the citizens that they have a voice in the government. All they have now is they get to vote every 2 to 4 years, and that's it. And the federal government now basically is all about being reelected. It's not about running the country. They are just concentrating on, basically running an election year round. Once they're elected into office, their only priority is to be reelected again. And that means they won't make any wise decisions They will only do what the emotions of the day seems to be talking about. That's why polls have become so important. I believe that eventually we're going to have to address this. And I don't know how that's going to happen. Because today, the federal government has what it wants. And we have very few legitimate rights left that can't be just taken through precedent from the federal, given to the federal government. They can just take what they want. That is the reason why I think the unity is so messed up. Why bipartisanship is just not possible anymore. And until this is addressed, and why should they? Why should the federal government give away what they've already got? That's why it was supposed to be so hard, and I regret that the Supreme Court made this decision. I wasn't alive in the 1960s. Well, I had 2 years in the 1960s. 68 is when I was born. But the point is, that's when we made the errors. And I would like to point out, there is an argument to be made, logically, that the Constitution, by saying all people are created equal, that there should not have been racism, slavery, in other words. There should not have been discrimination between minorities and gender and women. Okay, you basically, they had already those rights addressed by those words alone. That argument can be made, and I agree with it. That does not mean that everything that has come after it is right. And we've now went from making sure the Constitution is interpreted the right way to basically giving special rights out. Arguments are about whether or not, who gets what, who should, how do we address a wrong that was done 200 years ago and to make things right now. We can't address that. Nothing is going to fix the past. All we can do is learn from it and move forward. But that's not what we're doing now. And until this changes, it's just not going to get any better. Thank you. Bye.